welcome to the Butterfly House. Thank you for joining me for a nice cup of tea and a little chat threaded with fibre. You can find me on most social sites. I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page and Ravelry as the Beady Butterfly. I haven't really kept up much of a project page on Ravelry, and I have opened a group to support Threaded in Fibre, which I hope will encourage me to spend more time beyond working and knitting and do make more connections. So I will try my best to keep that up. I hope you enjoy my stories threaded with fibre. They are personal to me, but I want to share them. It's the nice thing about podcasts is how they reach out to people, how everybody is supportive and interested, and connections that are made seem worthy and strong, and I'd really like to be a part of that community. I've been knitting for many years, over 40 years, self-taught, and spend my entire day around fibre one way or another, sewing, knitting, etc. I'll go into more of what I do beyond the needles at a later date, but I will show you one or two pieces of old work which give you an indication of other things that I do. So, why a podcast? Yes, I was inspired by Tilly and Danny primarily, who both do such lovely podcasts. Danny is such a sweet person, both on her podcast and when you shop in her Etsy shop. She's a lovely woman, and I am so happy to watch her and listen to her stories. And of course, Little Bobbins is a delight. I have two dogs of my own, and they do like to watch me work, but not as passionately and as devotedly as Bobbins is with Danny. It's such a lovely relationship to see. And of course Tilly, who isn't podcasting at the moment, but I hope she joins the community with her podcast again soon. I watch a lot of podcasts, and I will mention a few later on that I particularly enjoy, and I'll try to throw in a few as I go along. So, what shall I start with? My background is not in crafting as such. I have no training, none at all. Everything I do is self-taught, or with a little of a kickstart from my grandmother many years ago, who was an avid knitter. She made all our clothes when we were tiny, and my elder sister's only a little bit older than me, and she used to make us matching clothes, matching outfits. I remember a really typical 1970s kilt in browns and yellows with a matching yellow hand-knitted jumper, and the pain that both of us have on our faces in the photographs that we have is quite hysterical to see, really. Almost cruel, but nonetheless, knitting, she caught me with that. I'm sure she taught me, although I don't remember being taught. I do remember a few classes in crochet when I moved to Wiltshire. A sweet little old lady, I don't know how my mother found her, but I used to crochet mats, and they were all bowls, and she taught me how to make them into plates. So thank you to her, and that just went on from there. Loved it. And I do needle felting. That was inspired by watching a wonderful woman called Naomi Culpin Stannard, who has a farm for rare breeds in Somerset, and she does fabulous needle felting. And so I looked at it and thought, I'll give that a go, and I have made some really nice sculptures. Again, I'll show those at a later date, because I don't just needle felt, I then embellish with beading and hand sewing and things like that. So I will show those. So I'm going to start with some things that I've already finished, and the first thing I'm going to show you is the Little Bobbins Christmas Eve cast on, which I have to say is only the fourth pair of socks I've ever made, and I made them for my son, and they took me in actual knitting time 3 days, although it spread over 2 weeks. And he is not someone who wears colour, and so when I asked him to pick his own yarn, he picked this, which completely threw me. And it is Jarwol Magic. No colour name to it, but it is absolutely gorgeous. It's very vibrant. I'm hopefully catching the colour there. And the pattern I got from this amazing sock book I'm going to show you, called Think Outside the Socks. And it is full of very structured patterns. This particular one is Split Reed by Joseph L. Rogers, and it was a joy to knit, absolute joy to knit. The stitching pattern is really quite basic, but the construction is what interested me, and so it was done as a cuff down and finish on the toe. I chose that because he's not here very often, and I wanted to be sure to make it fit, and if I did it with finishing on the toes, it meant that I could adjust the size more easily. And so he has yet to try them on. I'm hoping they'll fit. I'm pretty sure they do. He is only a size 9.5, 10. So there we go. That was only the 4th pair of socks I've ever knitted, and thoroughly enjoyed them. That brings me to another one of my challenges for the year, is to finish 12 pairs of socks in a year. So I'm giving myself a month. I can knit a pair in 3 days. I did that for Christmas this year for my partner's son, and rushed those off the needle because they were a last minute thought. I didn't know what to get him, so I thought, I know, I'll knit him some socks. He'd been complaining about cold feet, and so I rushed out this pair of socks, which he absolutely loved, so I can do it. And after that I thought, I'm going to give socks more of a go. I've spent 40 years avoiding doing it because I couldn't cope with the intricacies of DPNs, which strangely enough I love now. And then I picked up Magic Loop for a garment and thought, okay, I'll do that on socks, and blow me down. Yes, I love it. So I'm hooked on socks. Not as passionately as a lot of people, I have to say, but nonetheless, I will endeavour to do 12 pairs of socks this year. Finish them. And I say finish because I have actually got 1 pair on the needles, which I'll show later, which I did start last year, very late, but I'm going to count them because they will get finished this year. So that's one finished item. A second finished item, I did a test knit for Mina late last year, and this is Highland Peaks, and it is a lovely pattern, really lovely pattern. There we go. Enjoyed it. I love the way these stripes come out as circles through her increased style. Really, really lovely. And then you finish with this beautiful lace pattern, hence the Highland Peaks name, which I'm sure you all know. What I have done, with her kind permission, was to bead through, just to pick up a little bit of highlight. Now, they don't shine terribly well on camera, but when the sun sparkles, it's really pretty. So it's like the sun setting in the Scottish Highlands. So there we go. I love that pattern, Mina. Well done. Keep up the fantastic work, and I would be more than happy to do more test knits for you. So that was a huge success. And then the second shawl I'll show you is by Aroha Knits, and this is the first thing I finished this year, and I'd seen the pattern not that long ago actually, but I loved the construction and the texture that it seemed to show, and indeed it does. Now, it is quite lovely. I've done it out of Cascade Heritage sock yarn on 4.5 needles. The colour, they call it Snow White, so it's not a pure white and it doesn't glare. And I haven't blocked it yet because actually I'm not sure I want to. The Cascade Heritage has a beautiful plumpness to it, and what can happen with blocking, and I am quite an aggressive blocker, is you lose some of that plump and spring. So I, as yet, am undecided, hence the unwoven ends, but the you knit the shells first and then you come up through the body of the shawl with garter stitch, and it is a lovely knit. And I do like to, I am very much a process, not a product. Although I love the product, the process is what attracts me. And so I very rarely knit the same thing twice, because yeah, I've done that construction, now I want to be challenged in another way. So that's my very first finished object of this year, and I'm more than happy with it. And the last piece I'll show you that I finished a little while ago actually, and I did put it on my Facebook page, and I've done nothing with it since. And it's a piece of crochet which everybody was doing last summer, possibly a bit earlier than that, and it's Sophie's Garden. But I wanted to do it. I have a very large one which I've almost finished in a cotton yarn, which is for a throw for my daughter's room. But I wanted to do something, I wanted to challenge myself in a different way. So I used a fibre that one wouldn't normally pick for crochet, because it's very splitty and it's very slippery. And in fact, later on I'll show you something I've knitted with it as well. And so I made this panel, which is Sophie's Garden. And the yarn has a gloss to it. It is Drops cotton viscose. And the mix is 54% cotton, 46% viscose. I don't know whether it's a natural, you know, a bamboo, or whether there is some other man-made viscose going on in there. But the yarn is incredibly difficult to work with. But the finished item, as you can see, the stitch definition, the gloss, it's just a dream. And it's quite weighty too. So I'm probably, I'll either hang it on the wall, or I will make a cushion cover out of it. I can't quite decide, but I love it. Absolutely love it. But I won't do it again. Not in that yarn. So those are my finished items, and I'll move on to the things that I'm working on at the moment. And as I mentioned before, I'm working on some socks. So I have 3 children. My eldest, he's done, and so the next pair is for my middle son. Now I'm using a pattern, it's free, because of my inexperience in knitting socks. I constantly refer back, simply because it's not planted in the brain yet. So I'm using a pattern called Jess's Basic Toe-Up Sock for its stitch count and the order of construction, purely for that, because I put my own stitch into it. Nothing very exciting, but nonetheless suitable for Anthony's feet. He has huge feet, and they're really shallow. They're not very wide, but they're very, very shallow. So I needed to do a sock that was going to take a hold of him, and so he could feel it on his foot, which is why I kept with the heel flap and gusset. I think that's what you call it. So there you are, look at the size of that. His foot measures 12 inches. His foot is a foot. So it's quite a labour of love, and I do love him dearly. And so the stitch I chose to do, because of the very nature of its spring, was a 5:1 ratio knit and purl, and that goes through the leg of the sock and along the front of the sock, and the sole is kept plain because you can feel that single rib line on the inside quite clearly. The yarn I'm using is its good old favourite everybody loves, and that is Ousterman Step. And the colourway, they only ever had numbers, don't they? They never had names. So the colour is 0018. Doesn't mean anything to anybody, I don't suspect. That's the picture of what they expect from the socks, and you get exactly what you expect. Boom, boom. He again chose his colours, but I popped in the gold trims because he's not frightened of a little colour, bless him. So I'm knitting those on higher sharp needles, size 2.5. I went for 2.5 rather than 2.25, simply because of the tightness that was being given by that style of broad rib pattern. So really pleased with those. And his second sock is on its way. I am almost to the end of the gold heel, just up the leg and onto the cuff. Really happy with them. And they fit. He has tried it and he did love it. And my needles are being held by Danny's little bobbins. her cases. I've got quite a few of these. They are beautifully made, and she is such a joy to purchase from. She really cares about her customers. Love it. Okay, so that's darling Anthony, and then of course my third child, my daughter, and I picked her a pattern from that amazing sock book again. Excuse me bobbing off because I've got everything spread around me and I keep having to go down and pick it up. I'm sure I'll work out a better way eventually. Forgive me. I picked her a pattern from this same gorgeous book, and it's called Ruby Slippers. I'll show you a picture, if I can show you it without giving anything away. If I cover that bit up with my scribbly notes. There we go. Is that not so pretty? Again, she has quite slim feet. And she's not a huge sock wearer. She wears barefoot. Nothing. However, I'm insisting that she tries to keep something warm on her feet for the winter. And she's obsessed with zebras. So it had to be black and white, didn't it? It doesn't show the pattern as well as I would like it to. It doesn't do it justice, shall we say. But nonetheless, very happy with it. But, and this is why I picked it, it is not a standard, for me, construction. It has the most unusual way of giving you a shape on a foot. You widen through the front. So this cabling runs up the centre and wraps around, and as it wraps around your foot, you increase and you give the shape of the top of your arch of your foot. The heel construction is fairly much as any other pattern, with the heel increases and decreases. So you come up the toe and then on up the leg, and then the top is given a little picot edge top to it, which I think is rather fun. And again, she's tried it on and she fits. It fits. Eureka. And the second one is coming on, although I've had to tick back because, as I say, I started this last year and put it aside for Christmas knitting and various other things, and then forgot where I was in the pattern. So I've had to tink right back to the point at which you would then increase to come up the foot. So I've come to the point where the cable splits up the foot, and I am working on Addies this time. I've got a few, I'm not devoted to any particular make of needle because I haven't been knitting them socks long enough. I do like Knit Pro. Knit Pro in their plain metal needles. I don't know what they're called. I do like them. I'm very unfussy about my needles because I knit at a pace which doesn't tire me. But having said that, the hires, the cables and the needles I'm very attracted to. I have bought some circulars, detachable circulars as well from them, and so far so good. I had bought some Knit Pros recently. I got caught up in this new presentation box of Knit Pro, which is in a beautiful pink Paris adorned box, and took out my first set, the smallest size, which was a 3mm, and snapped almost instantly. So not very happy with those at all. I will stick to my ordinary metal needles as far as I'm concerned. So that's my 3 socks. And the last thing I'm going to talk about that I am working on at the moment is for a sweater cowl for vegan Jilly, whose podcast is called The Knitting Broomstick, and she's a scream. I love her. She just had a baby recently, and she still podcasts. I don't know how you do it, woman. You're a wonder woman. So I've joined your sweater cowl. I haven't done an item of clothing, a garment, for many, many years because they are such a commitment. But I fell in love with this pattern when I saw it in the Tea House Knits podcast, and it's called Engineered Seams. And I picked it because of its construction. It doesn't have a straight line on it anywhere, and I believe you don't seam anything. It comes together through your knitting. So I've picked that as my sweater. But just to give an added piece of hardship, if you like, is the yarn I've chosen. I've chosen a cotton, and it's not the best choice for the style of sweater because there's a lot of short rows, and so you do a lot of wrap and turns, which cotton's not a very forgiving fibre for doing that. It shows up a lot, and if you make a mistake, you don't twist the stitch well, or your wrap is too loose or too tight. It shows a lot in your work. So putting that aside, and hopefully some washing and blocking will lose some of that, I'm quite happy with it. And the reason I chose cotton is because I can't wear wool anymore as a sweater. And I can't wear wool simply because of the menopause. It makes me too hot. And my internal heater zooms up instantly the minute I put wool on, which is really annoying. I can wear woolen accessories and I can wear woolen scarves, but I cannot wear woolen sweaters. Anything too enclosed around my neck and body. So here we go. This is engineered seams on its way. To me it looks like an old dish rag at the moment, which doesn't help because I'm doing it in cotton, but never mind. There we go. Just trying to work out where's the front. That is the front, and those are the shoulders, and this, I'm hoping the cotton will give it a good drape. This will drape through and around the neck like so. So you have a very loose fit. But if I come really close, you can see what I mean about how unforgiving cotton can be. It's not too bad, and I'm hoping that, as I say, the blocking will bring it in line a little more. But you can see the little wraps and turns. But what you can also see is how many there are. And it is so difficult to lose my place in the pattern. So there's an awful lot of scribbling going on with that. But that's fun. We do like a challenge. So those are my current whips, as they say. And I also wanted to just show you a couple of things that I've done past. And the reason I wanted to show you them was because each one has its own reason. The first one, I'll stick to knitting. I did the Doodler knit along, and I know this has been not controversial, but it's a bit like Marmite, you either love it or you hate it, and a lot of people like me love it. Some have knitted several, but there are a few who have got to a point and thought, nope, I can't cope with this anymore, or I don't actually like this element of the pattern. That's fair enough. We're all entitled to our own opinions, but as I say, I gave it a go. And so this was my finished Doodler, and I'll explain why I'm showing you this in a moment. So here he is, and I did exactly as the pattern stated. I kept all the stages, and I even did a full frill. What I did do was I didn't spread my picot pieces out so far. The pattern didn't have them quite so dense, so I packed them out a little and put some beads on the base just to give the shawl more weight. But it's huge and it's a lovely piece to wear. But what I loved about it was the initial construction. I loved this sweep that you got. I know it's been done in 2 or 3 of his patterns, but at this point I was new to Stephen West. And so I decided to take that element and do something else with it. So, again, just to challenge myself at another layer, I used that yarn again, the cotton viscose. Slippery, splitty, but gloriously shiny, because I wanted to knit something that could be worn on a summer evening. And I came up with this. This is a complete homage to Stephen West Doodler, but I've given it my own little twist. So I kept the sweep and I kept the very large twisted cable, but I didn't get wider as it went along. I kept it all the same depth and put a buttonhole, there we go, in the pointed end, so that when you put it on, I'm going to put it on, even though it'll look really weird over my stuff. When you put it on and you bring up your large sweep, I put a huge stabby button on there. I happen to find I recycle buttons all the time, buttons and beads. So I never buy any new ones. So there we go, and it sits. So you see, I wonder if I can show you better. There we are, that's a bit of a better look. So you see this beautiful sweep, and it will sit as a summer shawl. It's got that weight that this yarn gives, and the fluidity. So you could put it on an evening dress, or you could wear it over a summer frock. I just love it. really pretty. And it's not wool, so it doesn't swamp me and make me too hot. Very, very happy with that. So that's a past piece. 3 past pieces. I'll try to put a few of those in as I go. Now I'm just looking at my notes. I think I've covered everything. It's a lot of chatter, and I'm really pleased if you've joined me at the Butterfly House and you want to join me again. Yeah, what I hope to do is podcast fortnightly, and primarily pick that time frame because my son is going to help me, and he comes to me fortnightly, and I have no idea. I'm not a technophobe, but I am very slow to learn. I have no natural ability with technical things whatsoever. So he's going to teach me how to edit and put this video out. I can see I've been videoing for 25 minutes. That's quite good, actually. I had hoped I wouldn't go on too long. And I'm sure I've missed out loads of things I wanted to say, but nonetheless, we'll add them in a fortnight's time. And so I will leave you with a little fun fact. Did you know that knitting was once considered only a male occupation? The current trend is to wish for male knitters to be, and to support them, more male knitters. I wish the industry in that surrounds knitting is more welcoming to the male knitter. But it was once considered to be, knitting was once considered to be an only male occupation. And the first knitting union, I'm reading it off my notes, was founded in Paris in 1527. And you guessed it, no women allowed.